Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where everyone wants to be seen. Everyone's talking, tweeting, snapping, posting. But let me tell you something powerful. Most people wake up every day reacting to life. The alarm goes off, they check their phones, scroll through social media, respond to texts, and before their feet even hit the floor, their mind is already distracted. But if you want to build yourself quietly and powerfully, you've got to learn to take ownership of your morning. Your morning is your foundation. And if the foundation is weak, everything built on top of it will eventually crumble. The way you begin the day determines the energy, the clarity, and the direction you'll carry through it. When you start your day on purpose instead of by accident, you set yourself apart from 90% of the population. Mastering your morning doesn't require an audience. It requires a decision. It means you stop living like a thermostat, constantly reacting to temperature, and you become a thermostat, setting the tone for your entire day. The first moments of the day are sacred. They are quiet moments where you get to hear your own thoughts before the noise of the world invades your mental space. In that stillness, you can tune into divine direction, to vision, to clarity, to conviction, to make your decision subordinate to make your decision. That's when you connect to your assignment for the day, when you declare how you're going to show up in the world, not how the world is going to show up for you. You get to decide whether today you're going to be led by distraction or by destiny. And that decision is made not when you walk out the door, not in the car, not during the meeting, but when you're still at home and the world is still sleeping. That's where the real battle is either won or lost. You train your soul to be strong before anyone else demands a piece of you. You build mental muscle by committing to routines that nobody sees and habits that don't need an audience. That's power. That's purpose. Instead of reaching for your phone first, reach for your purpose. Instead of reacting to the world, respond to your calling. Instead of waiting for motivation, build structure. Create a ritual, something small, something simple, something sacred. It might be 5 minutes of silence, 10 minutes of gratitude, 15 minutes of prayer, reading one chapter of a book, stretching your body, drinking water, journaling your thoughts, speaking affirmations. All of these are small hinges that swing big doors. People think they need to make massive changes to get massive results. But what they really need is to do small things with massive consistency. And there's no better time to start than in the morning when the world is still quiet and you still have control. You have to realize that every time you hit snooze, you delay your destiny. Every time you skip your morning commitment, you weaken your personal leadership. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself, and self-leadership begins before the sun comes up. The most powerful people in the world don't just know what to do, they do it without anyone watching. They don't need a post, a platform, or a pat on the back to get started. They understand that internal excellence always shows up as external results. You don't have to announce your growth because the fruit will speak louder than your words. Quiet mornings are the training ground for public victories. You learn to command your day before the day commands you. You learn to govern your emotions, your energy, your thoughts, and your focus all before the rest of the world demands your attention. When you master your morning, you become the architect of your future, not just a manager of your past. The world today is filled with noise. Everybody wants to be seen, heard, validated, and applauded. Social media has turned private development into public performance, but real growth doesn't happen on a stage, it happens in silence. The loudest person in the room is rarely the wisest, and the one who talks the most is often the one who listens the least. But the person who learns while others are talking gains the greatest advantage. When you build yourself in silence, you're not wasting time proving your worth to people who don't hold the key to your future. You're using that time to gain insight, to sharpen your mind, and to acquire wisdom that will last beyond trends, opinions, and applause. There's something powerful about choosing to sit down, be still, and absorb knowledge while others are obsessed with being noticed. Because when you learn in the dark, you shine in the light. When you train behind the scenes, you're prepared for any scene life puts you in. Most people are waiting for the next big opportunity, but they're not preparing for it. They're waiting to be discovered, but they haven't discovered themselves. When you choose to learn while others are performing, you give yourself the edge. You become the person who's ready when the door opens. You're not scrambling to figure things out when life gives you a chance. You've already done the work in secret. Learning in silence builds depth. And depth is what separates the surface level thinkers from those who build empires. You start seeing patterns that others miss, connecting ideas others don't see, and making decisions based on timeless principles instead of temporary hype. That kind of thinking is only developed through focused, intentional study. It doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't require an audience. It requires humility, patience, and a hunger for truth. The key is being teachable, being open, knowing that you don't know everything. That's how real growth begins. When you stop trying to impress people and start impressing truth upon your soul, transformation becomes inevitable. It means asking questions instead of always having answers. It means listening to mentors, reading books, studying strategies, dissecting principles, and practicing self-awareness. It means choosing podcasts over playlists, books over gossip, wisdom over entertainment. It means you stop feeding your ego and start feeding your mind. You're no longer driven by the need to be seen. You're driven by the desire to understand. Because you know that when you understand something, you can apply it. And when you apply it, your results speak louder than anything you could post online. Some people chase platforms, but people who learn in silence build foundations. Platforms can collapse. Applause fades. Trends change. But principles endure. If you spend your time mastering the principles, you'll never have to chase attention. Attention will chase you. You won't have to force opportunities. They'll find you. Because the marketplace rewards value, not volume. And value is developed in quiet, consistent, focused growth. When others are trying to be known, you're trying to become known by your results. You don't need to announce that you're working. Your work will show it. You don't need to advertise your discipline. Your discipline will advertise itself through your fruit. Learning in silence teaches you to delay gratification, to build character, and to stay grounded no matter how high you rise. You become the kind of person who doesn't just chase success, you attract it through substance. While others are getting applause for sounding good, you're preparing to do good, live good, and leave a legacy that noise could never create. We live in a time where being accessible is seen as a virtue, but the truth is, if you're always available, you're rarely valuable. When you begin to build yourself quietly, one of the first things you must learn is how to protect your energy. Not every call deserves an answer, not every text requires a reply, and not every invitation should be accepted. You are not obligated to participate in every conversation, every drama, every debate, or every demand. Your energy is your responsibility, and if you keep giving it away freely, don't be surprised when you feel drained, frustrated, or off track. Quiet growth demands selective focus. You have to become so clear about your purpose that you feel no guilt in saying no to things that don't align with it. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's wise. You cannot pour into others if you're always empty. You cannot produce greatness if you're constantly distracted by smallness. When you're serious about your development, you begin to realize that silence is a sanctuary. You don't need to explain your isolation to people who aren't committed to your transformation. You're not being distant, you're being disciplined. You're not cutting people off, you're cutting distractions out. There's a difference. People may not understand why you're less available, less talkative, less involved. That's okay. You're not building for validation, you're building for destiny. And destiny requires discretion. You need room to think. You need space to strategize. You need time to recover, reflect, and realign. Protecting your energy means creating intentional space around your purpose. It means refusing to allow access to people who drain you, belittle your growth, or question your vision out of their own insecurity or confusion. Some people don't need to know what you're building, not because they're evil, but because they'll never understand the blueprint. They'll project their limitations onto your vision. They'll speak doubt where you need faith. They'll question the process because they can't see the promise. That's why quiet building is powerful. It keeps your energy clean. It shields you from unnecessary opinions, premature expectations, and the pressure to perform before you're ready. It keeps you focused on what matters. And when you're focused, you're dangerous, because focused people make moves that confused people can't predict. They grow when nobody is watching. They prepare when nobody believes. They build momentum in the dark, and by the time the world notices, it's too late to stop them. Protecting your energy also means protecting your inputs. What you read, what you watch, who you listen to. These things either fuel you or fatigue you. You can't build powerfully if you're feeding on weakness. You can't lead with clarity if your mind is cluttered with chaos. If you're constantly absorbing bad news, scrolling through empty content, engaging with negative voices, then don't be surprised when your confidence starts to fade and your motivation disappears. That's why building quietly is a spiritual discipline as much as it is a mental one. You become the guardian of your gates. You decide what gets in and what stays out. You protect your peace like it's your purpose, because in many ways, it is. Peace is what allows you to create, to focus, to grow. Without it, you're just reacting to life instead of shaping it. And sometimes protecting your energy means walking away from things that once felt comfortable. It means letting go of relationships that no longer fit your future. It means saying goodbye to habits that were once coping mechanisms but now hold you back. Growth isn't just about addition. It's about subtraction. It's not just what you take on, it's what you're willing to release. And the more you release what no longer serves you, the more power you regain. The lighter you travel, the further you go. There's a special kind of strength that comes from doing something consistently when no one is watching. In a world obsessed with results and recognition, there's a quiet power in choosing one discipline, committing to it, and mastering it without needing to post about it or prove it. This is not about showing the world what you can do. This is about showing yourself what's possible when you don't quit. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need a camera, a crowd, or a countdown to perform. When you build one discipline in private, you begin to understand that growth is not a one-time event. It's a daily decision. And it doesn't have to be a massive shift. The size of the action doesn't matter as much as the consistency of the commitment. It might be waking up at the same time every day, journaling your thoughts, reading for 15 minutes, writing one page, running 1 mile, studying a subject, practicing your craft, meditating in silence or praying with intention. The goal is not to impress anyone. It's to strengthen something within you. Because the moment you become consistent in one private discipline, you activate an inner engine that refuses to slow down. You build confidence, not because of what others see, but because of what you know you've done. And that kind of confidence is unshakable. It's not tied to applause. It's not dependent on feedback. It's rooted in repetition. Every day you show up, even when it's hard, you send a message to your mind, to your spirit, to your future, that you are not going to be ruled by mood, distraction, or convenience. You're training yourself to be committed, not just excited. And that difference is everything. Excitement fades, commitment stays. When you stick to a private discipline, you begin to experience the compounding power of focus. What seems small today will seem significant tomorrow. 1 page a day becomes a book. 10 push-ups a day becomes a strong body. 1 conversation with God becomes a deep relationship. 1 habit of gratitude shifts your entire mindset. But none of this happens overnight. And that's the beauty of it. The slow build, the hidden work, the quiet hours that no one knows about. They're all part of a sacred process of refinement. You're not just building a skill, you're building your integrity. You're becoming the kind of person who can be trusted with more. because you've proven that you're faithful with a little. Discipline in private creates overflow in public. People may wonder how you became so sharp, so focused, so calm, so wise, so powerful. They won't realize it came from the daily grind they never saw. They'll see the fruit, but they'll never see the root. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it sacred. You know the cost. You know the struggle. You know the days you didn't feel like it and still did it. That quiet habit becomes your hidden weapon. It creates a center of gravity inside you. It gives you direction when things get confusing. It gives you stability when life gets chaotic. And it gives you clarity when distractions come knocking. The truth is, you don't need to change everything to change everything. One focused, intentional habit can become the domino that shifts your entire life. But you've got to commit. Not for the applause, not for the recognition, not for the outcome, but because the version of you that you're becoming is worth it. Because you deserve to know what it feels like to follow through, to grow in silence, to win when no one's keeping score. That's where real transformation happens. Not in public announcements, but in private discipline. Not in flashes of motivation, but in quiet moments of decision, repeated over time. The world doesn't need to know yet. The fruit will speak when it's ready. When a seed is planted in the ground, no one stands around applauding it. No one claps for the soil. No one celebrates the quiet moment it disappears beneath the surface. And yet, that's the beginning of everything. What happens next is unseen, but it's critical. The seed breaks, it dies to its old form, and something new begins to form. That process is invisible to the eye, but it's necessary for the harvest. The same is true for people. When you're building yourself, when you're growing in silence, you are going through a process that the world may not recognize or reward, but it's the process that leads to real transformation. The law of the seed is unbreakable. You cannot skip the season of quiet. You cannot bypass the dirt. You cannot avoid the darkness if you want to rise. And just like the seed doesn't argue with the soil, you must learn to trust the process, even when it doesn't feel like progress. Most people want the fruit without the root. They want the glory without the grind. But the truth is, every public victory is preceded by a private battle. Every harvest is the result of unseen obedience. When you choose to sow in faith, when you choose to water your life with truth, wisdom, and consistent action, you are preparing for a breakthrough long before anyone else can see it. That's why you can't be moved by the silence. Just because nobody sees what you're doing doesn't mean it's not working. Just because no one claps for your discipline, your focus, your study, your prayer, your work, doesn't mean heaven isn't taking notice. The soil doesn't care about applause. It cares about depth. And your job is not to entertain the world while you're growing. Your job is to go deep, to get rooted, to become unshakable. Every time you show up with no recognition, every time you do the right thing with no reward, every time you stay committed with no confirmation, you are honoring the law of the seed. You are building something that time will not destroy. You're creating a harvest that doesn't need hype to survive. Because hype fades, but harvests remain. The seed doesn't break through the ground in a single day, and neither do you. It's not about how fast you grow, it's about how strong your growth is. Are you taking in the right information? Are you surrounding yourself with the right soil? Are you protecting your growth from the weeds of negativity and doubt? Are you staying consistent even when no one checks in on you? These are the questions that determine whether your growth will last. Quiet seasons are not punishment, they are preparation. They are the divine pause before promotion. They are the moments when your character is being shaped, your habits are being formed, and your strength is being tested. The people who succeed long-term are not the ones who shouted the loudest in the beginning. They're the ones who stayed faithful in the dark. They kept watering the seed. They kept showing up. They kept believing. They didn't need to post about it. They didn't need to prove anything to anyone. They knew that the law of the seed would not fail, that what they planted in obedience would one day produce a harvest in abundance. You've got to trust that your hidden effort is not wasted. You've got to believe that your silent progress is sacred. You've got to understand that just because no one claps when you begin doesn't mean the outcome won't be celebrated. In fact, it's often the things done in silence that produce the loudest impact. The root grows downward before the stem grows upward. The deeper the root, the stronger the plant. And the stronger the plant, the greater the fruit. So when you feel hidden, remember that you're not being buried, you're being planted. Growth is happening, strength is forming, destiny is developing, and one day, without needing permission or attention, you will rise. There is a trap many fall into when they start growing. It's the idea that success needs to be loud in order to be real, that transformation has to be visible to be valid. But the truth is, you don't need applause to be effective. The most powerful changes often begin internally, and long before anyone notices, the foundation has already shifted. When you build yourself quietly, you start to understand that the loudest validation is not noise, it's fruit. You don't need people to tell you you're changing when you already know you've made decisions no one else had the courage to make. You don't need confirmation when your consistency is your confirmation. You don't need permission to become the next version of yourself. You've already decided to rise. You've already chosen growth over comfort. And that choice is enough to set the trajectory of your entire life. There's something sacred about becoming better without broadcasting it. When you let go of the need for recognition, you reclaim your power. You start moving for the sake of your mission, not for the reaction of the crowd. You start speaking to elevate others, not to be seen. You act from purpose, not pressure. And that shift changes everything. It frees you. It sharpens you. It makes your growth sustainable because it's no longer built on the shaky ground of approval. You're no longer chasing compliments, you're chasing competence. You're no longer looking for validation, you're anchored in vision. That kind of internal clarity becomes your compass. You can walk into any room knowing who you are and whose you are, and you don't need the environment to agree with you in order to thrive in it. Some of the most effective people in history weren't the loudest. They didn't go around announcing every step. They just did the work. They kept showing up. They stayed in the shadows long enough to become masters. And when their moment came, they were ready, not because they trained for attention, but because they trained with intent. That's the kind of life that creates lasting impact. Not the one that's always visible, but the one that's always aligned. Quiet strength is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to move and when to wait, when to lead and when to listen. It's knowing that your value doesn't increase when others notice. It was already there when God gave you the assignment. You don't have to make noise when your results speak. You don't have to convince people to see what's happening when what's happening is real. And the more you build in silence, the more unshakable you become. You're not shaken by rejection. You're not distracted by compliments. You're not derailed by misunderstanding. Because you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and who you're doing it for. That quiet kind of conviction will outlast every trend, every opinion, and every season. It will carry you through delay. It will sustain you through disappointment. It will anchor you when everything around you is unstable. You will know how to stand because you learned how to kneel. You will know how to lead because you learned how to serve. You will know how to stay grounded because you learned how to grow without noise. Quiet growth teaches you how to be excellent, even when no one's watching. It shows you how to build habits that don't need hype. It teaches you how to live with integrity, even when nobody's checking. It prepares you for rooms you haven't entered and opportunities you haven't seen. Because when the spotlight finally hits you, it won't be your noise that carries you. It will be your preparation. The hours you spent becoming when no one asked. The lessons you learned when no one noticed. The character you formed when no one clapped. That's what makes you unstoppable. That's what makes you undeniable. That's what makes you different. You don't have to announce what you're becoming. You don't need to explain your silence, justify your discipline, or defend your decisions. Because when you build yourself quietly, the results speak louder than the noise ever could. While others are performing for attention, you're preparing for assignment. While others are chasing platforms, you're building foundations. Quiet growth isn't weakness, it's strategy, it's focus, it's alignment, and it's power. Every seed grows in silence. Every master trains in secret. Every strong tower starts with a hidden cornerstone. And so do you. You rise in private before you're revealed in public. You sharpen your gift in silence. You protect your energy. You choose discipline over display, character over clout, consistency over clapping. You are not waiting for permanence. You are not looking for applause. You are moving because purpose is calling you. And when the time comes, the world won't have to be told. You'll walk in. And they'll feel it. Your results will introduce you. Your fruit will confirm you, and your silence will have been your strength. So keep showing up. Keep growing when no one's watching. Keep building when no one understands. Because the quiet work you're doing now is creating a future that cannot be denied. And when the harvest comes, it will be undeniable, unstoppable, and unmistakably yours.